The Prime Minister personally welcomes home Barbadians on board the Carnival Fascination as the all-clear is given. That's our top story in this, your Friday, February 28th Barbados Today Morning News Update. The results are in. All tests conducted on a crew member and 2 others on board the ship Carnival Fascination are negative for the coronavirus or COVID-19. Prime Minister MOTTLEY, along with Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, Foreign Affairs Minister Senator Dr. Jerome Walcott, as well as other government and health officials, made the announcement to 37 nationals aboard the ship late last night.
I just wanted first and foremost to welcome you home.
Thank you.
We wanted to speak to you first before we speak to the others on the ship with the captain. With our home drums beat first. But also to let you know that we've done all the tests. All of the tests are negative, and therefore there's no reason for us to give you another 14-day vacation. But I also wanted to see you because the same way we were concerned, we figured that once you realized you weren't going into St. Lucia, that a number of you would have been concerned as to what was happening. And then all of you have phones, Wi-Fi, and all of the other things, so that we really just wanted to come to be able to hug you and to say to you, thank you for being safe, for being home.
The vessel was allowed to dock after being thoroughly inspected by health officials on Thursday afternoon, but passengers were not permitted to disembark until the results were known.
Regrettably, we live in a world now where we don't control what happens in this world, but I remind people that 100 years ago, our grandparents and great-grandparents were going through wars, and nobody promised us a rose garden. So that we take the world as we find it, but our obligation is to be fair, principled, and transparent. And that's what we've tried to do by addressing this matter early this morning. We've been on the phone from the time I got in last night at 11:30. But I don't think I had more than an hour and a half sleep with the Minister of Health. Jeffrey is hiding, but he needs to stand up, come, sir, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The 2 of them were on the phone with the Chief Medical Officer, who is playing easy boy right here. But all of them, I really want to salute them for the last 24 hours to allow us to be in this position. The truth is that the worst thing that can happen to us is to panic. And I want you to help me spread that message among Barbadians when you go home.
In other news, the Barbados Private Sector Association has welcomed the government's plan to abolish the Common Entrance or 11+ exam. However, BPSA Chairman Ed Clark believes before that is done, there needs more dialogue on the issue as well as on education as a whole. Speaking to Barbados Today, the private sector head insisted that major changes were needed at the primary school level, not only in Barbados, but also in the region.
If the labour market is so competitive, we have got to ensure that people are educated to the level required to meet that labour market. Now, it shows me that that problem does not start at the secondary level. So 11+ alone is not the problem. The secondary level is not the problem. This problem starts from primary level, elementary school, the primary schools. How do we have people falling through the cracks going into secondary schools that still can't write proper English or can't do minimum basic things, and people that fail miserably in the exam? A thorough analysis needs to be done of what is going on in our primary school system, not just in Barbados but regionally. I think that's where the problem starts, the focus on how we educate our very young children.
Clark was also concerned that school leavers seeking to enter the job market were not meeting basic requirements of most organizations.
We have to look at how we educate children for the future and not for today. I think that's where I would like to see a lot of change in the secondary school system and how we focus our education on children for the future. not just going and doing the normal subjects that we are doing today, but getting children ready for the future of the Caribbean and the globe. Marlon, the thing is that we are competing globally. We don't compete in a Barbadian environment anymore. That's long past. We can't educate people in the 70s mode when we're looking for 2040, 2030. So we have to move with that time and try to focus on how we get our children to that level. I don't think jumping and changing and stopping 11 plus next month and just saying you're sharing and zoning schools is the answer to anything. So I hope there's a lot more dialogue on that matter and a lot more strategic discussion around total education.
Children are becoming extremely crafty in their efforts to sneak illegal drugs and alcohol into the school system. So says the president of the Barbados Association of Guidance Counselors, Margaret Grant, who said in some cases children are learning how to camouflage drug testing results, how to stash substances in their school bag handles, pen barrels and sharpeners. Speaking on the sidelines of the opening of a drug education workshop for guidance counselors hosted by the National Council on Substance Abuse, Grant said that the situation was worrying.
I would say it is a problem. We don't need to wait until it's a big problem. No matter how big the problem is, no matter how small the problem is, we have a problem. And I think that we have to move as swiftly as possible to help arrest this problem and help our children. Yes, the education is there, but I think that the lack of skills, decision-making skills, the lack of being able to use refusal skills, resiliency skills, I think those are the things that we need to really focus on some more and help our children develop those skills so that when they're faced with situations, they can easily walk away. Right? And then even in terms of consequential thinking, this is where we want our children to get. Where in every situation they look at consequential thinking and therefore they're able now to think before they act.
The opposition People's Party for Democracy and Development believes consideration should be given about imposing stiffer penalties on persons who commit crimes against visitors. The position comes on the heels of last weekend's home invasion, which left 65-year-old Canadian visitor Kenneth Elliott paralyzed after he was shot in the shoulder. At a press conference yesterday, PDP'S spokesman for tourism, Scott Weatherhead, explained that crime committed against a tourist affected the entire nation.
I think potentially one of the things they could consider doing, for instance, is to increase the penalties for anyone committing crimes against visitors. Perhaps that's something that could be considered. It's not my portfolio specifically, but there are many ideas batted around as to how do you make people feel like it's one thing to rob a Barbadian, which is bad enough, but if you rob or commit a crime against a visitor, that now has a wider impact on more than one family. That impacts all of us because that's how we feed ourselves. That's where our income comes from. And so the penalties on someone doing that potentially could be increased to make people think twice.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Craft Center. Kick off the weekend this Friday from 4 p.m. to midnight with loads of food, drinks, and entertainment. Get ready for Crop Over with the Rhythm Roots Street Parade. Party like it's Kadooman Day on the street around Pelican Village with costume reveler, music, and more. It's Festive Friday. It's Festive Friday at the Bridgetown Night Market at Pelican Village Center from 4 p.m. to midnight. Admission free.
Regionally, health authorities in Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica impose more travel restrictions to 4 more countries with coronavirus or COVID-19 cases. The travel restrictions will be placed on Italy, South Korea, Singapore and Iran, while the Jamaica government said it was also reviewing the situation in Japan to make a determination. Meantime, Trinidad's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, said returning nationals will not be denied entry, but he said there are certain protocols in place for such situations. And finally, the International Monetary Fund's spokesman Jerry Rice says the economic cost for the COVID-19 outbreak is still uncertain, but will certainly negatively impact global growth.
We are likely to downgrade our growth projections for the world in the World Economic Outlook in April. Kristalina Georgieva has already said that, if you saw her statement at the weekend. I do not have another number for you today, but clearly the virus is going to have an impact on growth.
And that's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.